Hello and welcome to Console Shock, episode 68. Retro and modern gaming chat with me, Trev, and as always, Stu.
Hi there, Trev. We are one episode away from 69.
A number that I'm very familiar with. You know what I'm saying,
Hello. Hello, Sailor.
All of the intricate information of the number 69, sort of, for 70, for example.
Yeah, two away from 70.
And it's also a sex act. So yeah, that's why we like that, isn't it? Bloody old, old sex act. Yeah. We don't tend to talk about those really on the Shockcast, do we?
No,
don't tend to be much crossover.
Do you know what? I don't think that's what our listeners want to hear.
Probably why. I think we've kind of sort of intuitively realised that, haven't we? Somehow.
Yeah,
we've kind of tended to stuck to the old video games. There's nothing sexy about video games really at all. I mean, we know what the stereotype is, don't we? Just overweight, bearded, man-child people living in their parents', I would say basement, we're not American parent. They're just their parents living in the room in their parents. With a big collection of Atlas games, amiibos, and
Atlas games.
I don't know why you're laughing. This is our friggin' life.
I know.
Atlas games and on their own, probably. Yeah, that's probably it. I think, isn't it? So
basically,
the ladies aren't going to be swarming all over that kind of image, are they, Stu?
No, but I think we're the two lucky ones that both managed to find ladies.
Yeah, I don't really get how that happened, really. I mean, it's in the state of it, but we obviously got some kind of...
Trev. Speak for yourself, mate.
We've got some kind of charm to be able to do it, so thank you very much to our girlfriends for putting up all this weird video game kind of nonsense.
I know, exactly.
Does your girlfriend listen to the podcast?
No, she'd rather die.
So my girlfriend has listened to one episode, the Larry Bundy one, which she found funny.
Oh, right, okay.
Apart from that, I don't give a crap.
Is that the episode where you forced her into a room and just played it really, really loud and locked the door, and she had no option but to listen to it?
No, that was another one.
Okay.
I was worried where you go when you said when you forced her into a room.
Yeah.
No, that's if I wanted to watch, probably the film The Room. She hates that film. You seen that film? And Tommy Wiseau. Anyway, that's
I haven't seen it.
But yeah, talking of past shows and all that, we've been doing this nearly 12 years. Can you believe that?
12
years. Yeah,
it can't be 12 years.
Nearly 12 years.
No, it's not 12 years, Trev. So
it's 2020 now.
Yeah,
I think we're all right with that. Yeah, it's 2020 now.
It's 2020 now.
Yeah. So,
right.
So if we go back to so when did you start posting on? Because you're obviously, we know about PlayNation Games, the best retro game store in London.
Yeah.
Before it evolved into PlayNation, you were at M&M Games, weren't you?
That's right.
Posting on YouTube with those guys with as M&M Games.
Okay, let's go on there. Video. I'm actually on the channel. PlayNation Games. On YouTube, sort by oldest. Now, M&M Games shop tour 8 years ago.
Was that it? 8 years ago.
Yeah. So, I don't think it was 12 years ago. I think you saw the shop tour and you thought, bloody hell, they've got some good retro gear in there at the right prices.
Well, if you're on the obviously our channel, which we like people to go on if they can, if they're kind enough, our sort of first filmed version of this, because that's kind of what we wanted to start off with, was in 2013. So we're not too far from 8 years, but 8 years, 7.5 years, that's a long time to be doing this kind of stuff. And have we profited from it at all in that time?
No, not really. No.
I would say literally no.
Yeah, no.
But it's not about that, though, is it?
Well, no. It's what we've always said. It's about enjoying the process of of actually doing the podcasts, and that's the most enjoyable thing out of it, is sitting down chatting about sort of video games, sort of once every sort of 3 weeks or something, however often we do it, and it's just sort of basically catching up and talking about it's like being in the pub, really.
So we've had the Console Shock channel for 7-8 years now. But we've actually managed to hit 200 subscribers literally today on YouTube. Can you believe that?
That's on average 15 subscribers a year.
We're not going to. Jake Paul isn't going to be worried. Really, is that
what people call going viral?
That's not a good choice of words to use. Right,
going viral.
Now, there's plenty of things going viral at the moment. But you know what? I remember probably about going back to sort of 2010. I remember the YouTubers that I would watch in those days, probably not very many then, probably like Steve Benway, really. I remember he would do a video on 200. Here's my 200 subscriber special, or my 500 subscriber special, and obviously he's long since surpassed that.
I do think what I was going to say is that we do get a lot more listeners via the actual sort of downloads, on actual podcast clients.
That's really its natural home, to be honest.
It is actually, it's its natural home, and I think actually someone sitting down to watch on their computer or have it playing in the background a podcast is not something people do quite as much, but it's still I
actually do. I don't know if I'm unusual, but I actually do listen to podcasts on YouTube. It's not if you've got a computer near you, that is. I can understand that if you're out and about, you're obviously going to use your phone and iTunes, because you can't just stream like YouTube very easily, on a phone. For starters, you can't listen to stuff in the background. You kind of have to be subscribed to the premium sort of YouTube, don't you, just to be able to lock your phone.
I was going to say I'm subscribed to that, so I do actually listen to a few things. It's quite good actually, because I always download videos and I watch them on the way to work or things like that, so I don't use up my data. So it's actually quite a good service. But you're right. I think people's natural ways, when they're in the gym, when they're in the car, when they're on the way to work, when they're on the train, it's actually listening to a podcast, whether that's us or Joe Rogan. We put ourselves in the same sentence as Joe Rogan.
I think we've done that before, which is rightfully so, really.
They're the only two podcasts there are: Joe Rogan and Console Shock.
To be honest, most of the sort of long podcasts and probably more YouTube channels that I watch now, many of them started after us. Some of the guys who've had on the show, Retro RGB, Bob, friend of the show, Bob. We love Bob. I think he really started posting on YouTube. His site's been around a long time, but in terms of YouTube, I think 4 or 5 years.
And the Retro Hour today.
Retro Hour, they haven't been going as long as we have, I don't think. And there's a Retro Man Cave, I think it's sort of 2015 is when he kind of started to blow up on YouTube. Some of our favourites haven't really been around. They're a lot more professional, and a lot of them are full time with it, so they can really, push out the content, a lot more efficiently and fast and better than we can. We're not going to, no argument there, but. Yeah, we've kind of been around for a while, and it's kind of just flown by, really. But there's one thing that we're going to talk about right now that's really going to bring the subs in big time. Proper nerdy gaming thing, because about a certain company called Konami, right, Stu?
Oh, Konami. Don't get me talking about Konami. What they do with their Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I can't believe we're going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh, no, we're going to talk about a franchise that everybody on YouTube... in retro gaming terms, is the first one that they think of, right? When they think about Konami. So name what you think that is right now.
Oh, it's got to be Silent Hill.
No, and a different one. A different one made by Konami. Yeah, very famous franchise. It was just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Castlevania.
No, it's not that either. Is there another one? You got any others?
Give me a clue. Give me a clue here, Trev. Come on, this is.
Well, it's not Contra as well.
It's not Contra.
getting a bit worried now. Should it be one of them? I think it should be one of them, right? That's what sort of retro gaming.
I mean, people
talk about.
on retro gaming channels, they love to talk about Castlevania, Contra, and stuff like that. They love it.
Well, sorry guys in advance to everybody listening, hoping for a real good Konami. Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Solid is another one.
It's none of these. It's literally none of these. It's actually about a certain simulator of sport that's been around for a while now in Konami.
Pro Evo again.
Yeah. So obviously we hold this series very dear to our hearts, but it doesn't really get any kind of Actually, you know what? Football games generally, apart from probably sensible soccer, and kickoff. The ones that are around in like ZX Spectrum / Amiga years are the only ones that really get sort of affectionate. You know what I mean? Affectionate kind of retro gaming videos of the good old days. Look how charming these games are. These brilliant, iconic games. But really, you don't really see a lot of love. Certainly not in the UK well, you probably wouldn't in the US anyway because it's a football game, soccer to them. But it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. And funnily enough, it's really the only franchise that Konami still make a game for, which is, obviously we're probably grateful for that, but it's kind of sad at the same time, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it's funny that people every year, FIFA and Pro Evo sell, bucket loads of copies of the games, but you never hear people doing, a fond. Oh God, I used to love honestly the dynamics on FIFA 99. I want to go back, and that was the best one with a really good mode that you did this, and I put lots. People never really talk fondly about them. It's always FIFA. I hate those. Always the same. And it's always
money. Yeah.
Oh, it's a waste of money. Or you buy it next year, it's the same as 5 years ago. It's just got new players, new kits. I mean, what's the point in and then but if you I mean I don't know how to get this information, but things like the hours people put into playing FIFA and you'll probably sort of agree with this. I mean, in the last year, how many hours do you reckon you played, FIFA 20?
Well, I could go on EA Origin on my PC and tell you that probably about 200 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah. So people obviously dedicate just as much time to these football games, these frivolous throwaway football games that any kind of super culturally or super cult RPG has. And I think they've got the best of both worlds, really. I don't want to review like football games generally here today, but I think they've got the best of both worlds in the sense that you can pick up and play them you could just do a quick go in the cup mode and play 3 or 4 games and you're done. Or you could dive straight into the career mode and spend hundreds of hours building up your team, managing your team, or doing, there's modes where you just play as the one player and building up a single player. And I don't think a lot of other like traditional video game genres, like, an RPG is obviously the first one I would say. I don't think you can necessarily do that. Perhaps with I guess you've got there's always an overarching quest that you're kind of always trying to get to the end of. So you can do them in short bursts, but not in sort of self-contained bursts, really. Football games, you can make your own kind of quest almost.
I remember someone did a video online, and it was actually he wasn't a football fan, but he was describing the latest FIFA as actually an RPG, because you go on there, you level up your skills, you're choosing basically a team, and then you're going out there, you're battling, and then you might battle in the 3rd or 4th division, and then your team gets better. Then you go up there and you get to the boss, which might be the World Cup final or the win the Premier League or something, and then you're constantly sort of leveling up your team, getting better. And it was actually it's a lot more like an RPG than people actually think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are very. If you're not into, I mean, obviously it's natural for us to like, Pro Evo because we're football fans, so it's just a game we'll naturally be into without really need to be persuaded. But
Yeah.
I think gameplay wise, I'm sure there are things that a lot of people that are very dismissive of football games might really get into if they took the time to play them. And there's always this whole thing of like, well, I don't want to play a sports game because I play games to escape from real life. I want to become an elf and run around in a forest. Well, it's like, I'm not going to be Ronaldo in real life, so I'm playing a football game to go into.
I think that's only valid if you are Lionel Messi.
Yeah, exactly.
And you go, well, I don't want to play bloody Barcelona on there and play football. I do that every Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get your point there. No, I agree with you, Lionel Messi, but that's a very valid point.
Yeah, so I've always been found that quite a silly sort of point that people that don't like football games do, but it's I mean, we probably could doing a whole episode on the history of Pro Evolution Soccer because it's not hugely well documented because again it's not a series that's kind of got a cult following like Castlevania has or Contra. It's obviously it's a massively popular football game. I think it's probably its height of its popularity is behind it. I think we're probably going to talking about the PS2 era would be when you'd say maybe the highest rated and biggest selling games in the series that came out. But I mean, we can touch on it briefly now in terms of the history of it. I mean, it's kind of interesting in itself because there was there's two teams at Konami that were both working on their own football game series. So there was Konami Osaka and Konami Tokyo. What is now Pro Evolution Soccer was developed by Tokyo. I believe it's still them as well that make it. If they even exist as separate teams anymore, they might have merged. And Osaka actually started making the football games. They made the first International Superstar Soccer. There were games before that, though, that Konami made. There was a game called J-League Fighting 11 on the Famicom, which was a Konami football game. Probably the one that people may remember in the UK because it got a UK release is Konami Hyper Soccer on the NES.
I think I bought when I went to Japan. I bought a game called some International Fighting Soccer or something for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that's ISS Deluxe.
Yeah.
There's it's Fighting 11 is Deluxe, and then regular ISS is just Winning 11. And so there's that as well. So you've opened another can of worms there, which we need to get to. So there was they had these early sort of games. We got one of them, on the NES, Konami Hyper Soccer, which is a decent football game. It's not. It doesn't play well these days. It's not a great football game by today's standards, but it's probably one of the better ones on the NES. I mean, everybody says, "Oh yeah, Nintendo World Cup," which is nothing like a football game. Well, it is a football game, but it doesn't play like the sport of football. Tecmo World Cup Soccer on the NES is the best NES football game. If you're going to play one, that's a really good game. Only came out in bits of Europe and Australia, which is kind of weird. But yeah, there's that on the NES. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, in terms of Konami, so they had there was International Superstar Soccer. So the first game that they actually made was International Superstar Soccer as we know it here. And that came out on the SNES. So this was basically the start of where we are now with Pro Evolution Soccer. This was the Tokyo team that developed this. Really, really good football game. Hasn't aged too badly at all. Still plays really well today. Probably the first game that really felt like actual real football. Because if you play FIFA, I don't know if you've tried to play like the original Mega Drive FIFA and FIFA 95. I think that they're crap. They're really crap. You kind of feel like it's just pot luck if you win the ball and then are able to make. You don't really feel like there isn't much of a passing game. You basically just try and get to the sort of halfway between the goal and the halfway line position and then have a shot, and normally it will go in. From there. And obviously they improved FIFA games, especially when they hit like, I would say they didn't really get really good until the PS2. To be honest, I mean, I have fond memories of FIFA 98 and 99 and 2000, but
I used to like FIFA 99 with Dennis Bergkamp on the cover.
Yeah, even that hasn't aged well though. Have you tried playing that like in the last few years?
Oh, I haven't. No, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, I like going back to these old games, so I do, revisit them when I get a nostalgia urge to do it. But FIFA 99, it's extremely fast is the issue I have with it. It's very fast, the ball just zips around, and to be honest, like the engine that EA used for those earlier PS1 FIFA games isn't great. The frame rate is quite low. I think it's probably about 20 frames a second, might even be less than that, or like 10 15. But, you pop on like, the ISS Pro and ISS Pro 98, the Konami for football games on the PlayStation, they're absolutely light years ahead of FIFA. Like, it's really nice, solid frame rate, much slower. So much more like real football. But yeah, they started on the Super Nintendo. So you got ISS, the original, then that got an update, ISS Deluxe, which added a few more teams and gameplay changes, and is a lot better. And also came out on the Mega Drive and the PS1. Everyone forgets it came out on the PS1, and it was an early-ish. It was actually the first PlayStation ISS / Konami football game. So that was again the Tokyo team, and then they went off and they kind of focused on the N64. So they continued the ISS series from the SNES on the N64. So they made ISS 64, 98, and 2000, which I have very fond memories of, especially 64 and 98. Brilliant, again, football games. The first really good 3D football games, I think. FIFA was like so far behind, it wasn't even funny then. But at the same time, the Osaka developers concentrated on making PlayStation football games. So they didn't port the N64 games. They had to develop a completely different set of games with their own engine on the PlayStation. In Japan, they were called Winning 11. And they've always been called Winning 11 and still are to this day, I think. But that was Winning 11. And initially it was called the first Osaka game that we got over here, Konami Osaka, is Goal Storm for the PS1. Quite a difficult game to get hold of. Have you heard about that one, Stu?
I haven't, no. But what we said actually about Winning 11, actually, I've probably talked about it a few times. Well, I used to live in Canada for a year after university, and I remember there that they didn't. The games, they're probably called Pro Evo now, but they're actually called the American release was called Winning 11. Winning
it was
11, 6. Super Evolution, or
they didn't get it until 6, I think. So they didn't get it until like the second PS2 one.
And I remember going to like a video game shop there and thinking, I love playing the Pro Evo games. And I had Winning 11's 6 Final Evolution for the GameCube. I've still got that somewhere. And so I actually went there and I was thinking, I really want to. And it was just like one of those games where, they had one copy in, and it was it's 3 or 4 months old, and it was like it was full whack. It was proper the full. And I thought games in Canada were expensive compared to the UK, and I think I bought it. I can't remember, but it was just like actually that's a bit too expensive. It was like 70 or 80 sort of Canadian dollars, and the equivalent of maybe sort of £50 for this game, which, man, if I was in the UK, I would have got that from Virgin Megastore for, it'd be $19.99 now. And so I think it actually put me off buying it. But
we got that game anyway. It's Pro Evolution Soccer 2, I think, is Winning 11-6.
Oh yeah, so there you go. You can buy that in CX for about 25 pence.
But that leads me to as an interesting thing. Well, actually, I just realised the Tokyo developed ISS games, so the ones that started on the SNES, went to the N64, they were called Perfect Striker in Japan, whereas the Osaka games, which are the ones that we still get to this day that started on the PlayStation, is Winning 11. So you had the Perfect Striker games, ISS 64, 98 on the N64, and you had the Winning 11 games. So we got those as ISS Pro. Well, there was Goldstorm was the very first one. It's a bit crap if you play it now, but quite a rare game. It can go for a lot on eBay. I've seen them go for 50, 60, 70 quid. It's a very early PS1 game, like early '96. I think probably we got it. Goldstorm. Technically, the first ever Pro Evolution Soccer game is Goldstorm. So Winning 11, it was called in Japan.
$59.99 by now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So quite a rare one. Not many copies pop up.
A disc only one. Or what about Goldstorm 97? That's from America.
That's ISS Pro, which we did get here. We got that here. We got Goldstorm as well, but Goldstorm 97 is what we got as ISS Pro, which is a super common game. You'll get it for like 8 quid at most. It's also a really good game. Really, really good. The first genuinely good Pro Evolution Soccer game. But an interesting side note, the PlayStation did get a port of Perfect Striker, the N64 ISS. We have mentioned it on the podcast before, but there's a game on the PS1 that's just called International Superstar Soccer. Doesn't have any number or anything on it. Has the same artwork as the PlayStation launch game, PlayStation 2 launch game, which is also called International Superstar Soccer. It gets a bit confusing with the names of the Konami. It's basically that. What that is on PS1 is it's the N64 ISS 2000. It is actually a port of that. The title screen even has ISS 2000 on it. So I don't know why they didn't just use the N64 cover art for the.
So
is
this the one that's called International Superstar Soccer Pro Evolution?
No. That's why this gets confusing. So yeah,
is this the one called International Superstar Soccer, and it's got sort of like a.
It's got the kind of CG, kind of rendered greenish tint. Sort of
that's the one. It's about $4.99.
Yeah, it's basically Perfect Striker.
Right.
It's a port of the N64 ISS 2000. It's really good. If you're a fan of the N64 ISS games and you have a PlayStation as well, PS1, grab it because it's a really good port of ISS 2000. It is. They did have to tone the graphics down a little bit, but it's pretty close. It's odd because there wasn't many N64 games that originated on the N64 that actually went over to the PS1. I can't really think of that many. I think Mission Impossible was one. I think ended up on PS1. And ISS 2000. Very odd. I remember a few games that went the other way, like Resident Evil 2 ended up on.
There's plenty.
Yeah, but never really the other way. So that's one, and you can see it's really great. So if you've got a PlayStation, you basically play both one entry from the N64 series, and you've got all the Pro Evo games. So you've probably got the best of both worlds with the PlayStation. You can get Perfect Striker, one of the Perfect Strikers and the Winning 11s, whereas the N64 you just had the Perfect Striker games and nothing else. You got FIFA, but you didn't get like the ISS game, the Pro Evo games. It's hard to keep track. So they're on the PlayStation, the Winning 11 games. They started off as Goldstorm was the very first one. Then the name changed to International Superstar Soccer Pro. So they started using the name that the Tokyo developed games got in Europe and the US, ISS. But they're the Osaka games. They're the Winning 11 games. And they kind of kept upgrading that ISS Pro engine. We got ISS Pro 98, which is, again, a really good game. Came out at the same time as the N64 ISS 98. Not Pro 98. That was just called ISS 98. Also a really good game. So what happened to these two series then is probably the real thing we need to get to. So the Tokyo series kept being developed, even in the PS2 years. So the last one on the N64 was 2000. We just said that got a port on the PS1, which is confusingly just called ISS, but it was on the PS1. And then as a launch game, ISS 2000 also got a PS2 port, which is a lot more common, which is also just called ISS.
99p.
Yeah, quite literally common as muck. But it was actually a launch game for the PS2 in Europe. It was the only football game. I think FIFA 2001. I think maybe that was a launch game as well. I can't remember. But yeah, it was a launch game. And then that got a sequel, ISS 2, which also came out on the GameCube and the Xbox. And there was and it ended with ISS 3. Which was on GameCube and PS2. Do you remember these weird ISS and ISS2 and ISS3 games?
I do, yeah. I had one of them for I think ISS2. Maybe I rented that for the GameCube because it was always difficult to get GameCube games, football games.
Basically FIFA, wasn't it? It was all there was.
It was FIFA, or if you wanted to, and then I think at the time it was like, it was. I couldn't quite understand. Okay, ISS, Pro Evo.
You probably would have been confused, yeah.
Yeah, are they the same? And, in all fairness, I don't think I remember actually sort of playing it enough to go, I can see the nuances are different here. I can sort of see the difference between one and the other. And obviously then, Pro Evo, I guess, became the sort of the big brand.
Yeah, so obviously there was... That ended with ISS 3, the Tokyo series, the Konami Tokyo series. So the one that started all the way back on the Super Nintendo ended on the PS2 and the GameCube with ISS 3. So it can be a bit misleading when people say, "Oh yeah, like Pro Evo 2020." That that was the series that started way back on the Super Nintendo. Not entirely accurate. It's kind of a cousin to that series, really. It's not the series. It's the Pro Evo 2020 and 2021 and whatever is actually a direct descendant of Goldstorm on the PS1 in 1995. So yeah, but so the Tokyo series ended, but at the same time, the Osaka series that's still going to this day. So that kind of evolved on the PS1. You could say it had an evolution. Yeah,
a professional one.
Of the soccer variety, I think. But yeah. So the name started to evolve and get really weird and sounded a bit crap, I thought, at the time. So it was ISS Pro 98, and then it became ISS Pro Evolution. So they kind of gave up on putting in a year at the end. They probably wanted to basically differentiate it from the Tokyo developed game, which just carried on being called ISS, and then you got ISS Pro Evolution 2 on the PS1. And then the PS2 came out. And the first Osaka game, developed game on that was Pro Evolution Soccer. So they thought, well, I guess it sounds like the name's getting weird. Let's just get rid of the ISS. But that also they also updated the PS1 series of that and just called that Pro Evolution Soccer, although it's technically ISS Pro Evolution 3. So this is getting weird. I mean, the thing is, these are often just a matter of months apart, these releases.
Yeah.
There was a point in the early 2000s where you'd get the PS2 Tokyo developed ISS2, for example. Then you'd get ISS Pro Evolution 2 on the PS1 within a couple of months of each other. Then you'd get Pro Evolution Soccer on the PS2 a few months after that. So Konami would bang out 3 football games in 1 year. Some of them on the same platform. In
Japan, that's what they did quite often. They had, the Winning 11. They seem to have, the Final Evolution, the this, the that.
That's right. Yeah, it's stopped now. They don't do it now, but
no, it was like, I've got to buy this one because it's got the. I don't know.
Basically be 3 releases of a football game. So I'll break it down for you now. So they would release whatever. The easiest example would be in the PS2 era. You'd get Winning 11-7 or something. So Winning 11-7 came out in 2003 in Japan, and then they would convert that for Europe and America, and they would call it Pro Evolution Soccer. I mean, Winning 11-7 is literally Pro Evolution Soccer 3. So we would get it as Pro Evolution Soccer 3. That's our version of Winning 11-7. But then Japan might also get a J-League version of Winning 11-7. So that'd be a version that just has the J-League teams. So they would get that alongside Winning 11-7. And then they would also get Winning 11-7 International, which would be they'd take the tweaks that were made to make our Pro Evolution Soccer 3 and sell them back, put them back into Winning 11-7 and sell an updated version Winning 11-7.
Right.
So the same game would actually get released basically like 3, maybe 4 times.
Oh my god!
So Japan might get a couple of versions. We'll just get the one. We just got the one version, didn't we? Would get.
I feel shortchanged, Trev.
It's happened.
We should have got all of them.
Oh yeah, I know,
I
right?
would have bought 4 football games.
Yeah,
football games a year. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, and they would name it. I mean, you mentioned it already, but like Winning 11-6. So it was Winning 11-6, and then in America that was called Winning 11-6 International. And then we got it as Pro Evolution Soccer 2. And then they got Pro Evolution Soccer 2 as Winning 11-6 Final Evolution, which had extra stuff that we never got at all as well. It had some extra gameplay tweaks. So there's a bit of a community that developed at the time where people were trying to translate that game to English because they were like, oh, I want to get the extra bits that they gave that we never got. So and also it came out on the GameCube.
And that's what I bought, and I remember every magazine's, everyone sort of wrote in on forums, oh, what's the best football game? Oh yeah, the best football game is you've got to get Winning 11-6 Final Evolution on the GameCube. It's only out in Japan.
Yeah. So we just mentioned, didn't we, that on the GameCube you're a bit stuck because you either had FIFA or the Tokyo developed ISS 2 and 3, and that was it. Apart from where you had Virtua Striker, didn't you, and like Sega Soccer Slam, just before anybody gets me in the comments. But they got one Pro Evolution game, so in Japan. So yeah, you can find like ROM or ISO patched versions of where they've translated it to English, so you can play it. Burn it to a disc. You've got a GameCube that can handle those, or play it in an emulator, and so you can play Pro Evo 2, which is what it is, but with an few extra bits on the GameCube with its own version. So yeah, and it's not. I mean, even now on import, it's still like 10 or 11 quid, I think, if you imported the GameCube. The PS2 one's like 50p, but like it's so common. But yeah, so and at that point, you had the PS1 Pro Evolution games. They got Pro Evolution Soccer, and they got Pro Evolution Soccer 2 on the PS1, which is technically ISIS Pro Evolution 3 and 4, and that was where the series ended in 2002 on the PS1. Still really good games though, really worth playing. Aged a lot better than the FIFA PS1 games have. Really fun games to play to this day. And basically, when we got to that point on the PlayStation 2. It just became Pro Evolution Soccer, and that was all we got. You would get we had Pro Evolution Soccer 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, and then they realised that we're kind of on giving it a number makes us like we're like people might think that's the year or something. So it looked like we're a year behind FIFA. So they just stopped doing that and called it Pro Evolution Soccer 2008, which is the one after 6, and then it's just the year, and now it's going to be eFootball.
eFootball, Pro Evo, whatever.
It's going to be eFootball eventually, like maybe next year, isn't it? They're going to get rid of the Pro Evolution.
I think so. Have you got your WhatsApp open on your computer? I want your bring it up. WhatsApp web. I've just sent you a message.
eBay this thing you're trying to get me to validate? Is that what it is?
I am. Someone from Italy. Is and I want you. There's 3 pictures here of lots and lots of Pro Evo games and winning 11 games.
Oh my god!
I want you to tell me if this is a good deal. I'm not going to buy it, but
so someone's got all of the winning 11 games on PS2 and Perfect Striker, I think, or World Soccer, as it was also called. And some of the J League winning 11 games,
and then on the second
J
picture,
League Perfect Striker. That was another series where
there's more pictures.
Oh, he's got all the. So someone's selling basically all the Konami football games that have ever come out, by the looks of things.
Basically, yeah.
So you got you got the ISS 98, Konami Hyper Soccer, most of the ones I've mentioned. So there was that's an interesting thing actually. So there was you only ever had 2 Konami football games on Sega systems. Funnily enough, there was one that came out on the Saturn called like J League Go Go Goal, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And on the Mega Drive, you got International Superstar Soccer Deluxe.
I think you told me to get the one on the Saturn, and I did buy it. I got it quite cheap.
You haven't played it.
I haven't played it yet, and
Another
I'm waiting
one
for
you've
the right
thrown
moment.
on the pile. Another one you've thrown on the pile that I've said you should get.
Yeah. But this great big bundle is €999, so approximately about £900.
He hasn't got all the PC versions though.
No, he
What
hasn't.
idiot!
What an idiot! I know. Tell me about it.
That's another thing. It came out. None of the PS1 era ones or the early PS2 ones ever came out on PC. In fact, Konami didn't really make many PC games generally. I think like one of their earliest examples I can remember, in terms of like Windows and DOS sort of games, is Metal Gear Solid, a port of that.
Right.
But we got ISS 3 on the PC. As in, the GameCube PS2 game that also ended up on PC. That was the first Konami football game, and then later that year, Pro Evolution Soccer 3 came out on the PC.
You haven't mentioned ESPN MLS Game Night.
Oh God, yeah, that's another one
with a Colombian fella on the front.
Yeah, so
was it Valderrama or something?
Yeah. So America got
Vanarama.
That's a cup, isn't it? That's one of the cups. Vanarama, yeah. It's the league, isn't it? It's the league, one of the conference.
Conference, Vanarama, yeah. It was named after the Colombian fella.
Yeah, exactly.
With the big hair.
Tried to sponsor like non-league for some reason. So in America they got some exclusive games that have been licensed that have an MLS license. It's sort of literally about 3 of them, I think. I think they're called MLS. They're called ESPN Game Night, and they basically use I think on PS1, PS2, and the original Xbox. I think a couple of seasons worth, no more than that, before it died. But it's basically also all the MLS teams are in there. I have played one actually on the Xbox. It's based on the first Pro Evolution Soccer on PS2. Just skinned with the MLS teams. But it's interesting because on the Xbox didn't get a Pro Evo until Pro Evolution Soccer 4. The original Xbox got 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And then the 360 came out. And and 6 ended up on 360. It was the first sort of HD Pro Evo, I think. Yeah, it would have been 6 was. But it was missing a load of features because I kind of had to rush it out on the Xbox 360. But yeah, 4 and 5 came out on the original Xbox. But before that, they released in America MLS Game Night Extra Time, whatever it's called. And it's just Pro Evolution Soccer 1 reskinned with MLS teams. So yeah, you've kind of on the original Xbox, you can get a slightly weird version of the first Pro Evolution Soccer. It's not bad, I've played it. I think just out of curiosity, I picked it up off eBay for like 10 cents or something. It cost about £3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it cost about £3 shipping because I just thought, oh my God, that looks so weird. I have to get it at that price. And yeah, I played it and I was like, wait a minute, this feels really familiar. And I literally popped in the first Pro Evo on the PS2, and it's basically the same, but just with MLS players. So yeah, there's actually yet another weird spin-off, and there's obviously been handheld versions and things as well, which we're not going to go into now. But
so what you mentioned to myself that you've been doing some modding to the.
Yeah, so I think so you're probably aware of like just general modding of games, where people like do it with like there's a popular game and they mod things into it, like different textures, sometimes different characters. Sometimes they'll mod in extra bits of storyline and things like that. Well, there's quite a big community of modding Konami football games. Most people, if you're into like Pro Evolution Soccer or football games generally, will probably be familiar with the concept of with Pro Evo, especially in recent years, although it's been around since, the early 2000s. Konami football games don't have licensed teams, or they have a very small amount of licensed teams. So what you know about that side, don't you, Stu? What do you know about?
I know that I remember there used to be sort of a bit of an industry in you get Pro Evolution 3 or something for the PlayStation 2, and then you would go to a local video game shop or your mate or someone, and they would have basically the file with all the latest players on. And all the correct kits, all the right names. So you basically have this file, and then it would basically have all of the licenses and sort of everything you need. So it looks the same, or has all the same characteristics as sort of FIFA that has all the licenses, really. So, I mean, I think if what I would like to sort of actually do is almost sort of play, let's say, Winning 11-6 Final Evolution on the GameCube. Can I play that with 2020 players? Is that possible?
So there might well be a patch just for that. I mean,
yeah,
looking at the history of patches, something that I've done, and people that have modded the game. So, I mean, yeah, so you're right. But basically, obviously, the Konami football games tend to always lack most of the, kits and players. They're all just made up fake teams. So the people, fans of the game that have the skills needed actually have created mods where you can actually put the real players in and the real kits to make it look, like you say, just like FIFA, which has all the licenses. So you're completely obliterating the main disadvantage Konami has, or Pro Evolution Soccer has, by adding all the real teams in. So in a way, if Pro Evolution Soccer is your favourite series, which probably for me it probably is, in terms of football games, I can basically have it look just as good as in terms of licenses as FIFA, but with the much better football that you get in Pro Evolution Soccer. But to this day, that doesn't mean that people only sort of the community is basically around just getting the current game up to speed, and the old ones are forgotten about. That's not actually the case. There's a lot of some certain entries in the series get updates that put in the current kits up to this season. I've noticed it mainly with Pro Evolution Soccer 6.
Yeah,
like people go nuts over that. I mean, the one caveat is in the English-speaking world, it isn't a big community. I've noticed that a lot of the biggest modders tend to be Brazilians or Italians. But there are, and most of the English ones tend to be PC-based. Which is so. I mean, I think it really blew up when Pro Evolution Soccer 3 came out on the PC, and that was the first Pro Evo on the PC. Obviously, people could very easily get access to the game files, so they're able to learn how where the kits live and where the player names live, and they're able to develop. Certainly these days with the current Pro Evo games, you can often just download if you know where to look for them. It's almost like a bit of software where you run the software, hit apply the patch, and it will just apply the patch for you, just as easy.
Do you know what, Konami? I'm sure they haven't got a problem with people doing that.
Well, I think there's a bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing where
exactly
they make it easy for people to do, and they don't lock it down in any way because they know it's potentially a selling point. We can be like, well, we haven't got the licenses, but you can put the names in if you want, and maybe do other stuff. We're not gonna. We'll turn off and walk away. You do what you want. But yeah, the great thing about it is, so you've got like certain entries from past entries, retro editions of Pro Evo. People continue to mod them now, like 6. I think 6 in particular, because it was kind of I think people view it as like the last of the glory days, I suppose, of the PlayStation 2. After that, they largely moved over to the HD consoles, and they kind of didn't bother, really doing anything to the PS2 game after that, even though they did continue to release it for several years. But Pro Evo 6 is considered to be like a high point, so that you can actually get. So a lot of the patches are for the PC. The ones that are easy to get are for the PC. But there are people that have patched the PS2 versions of the games. They're a bit more difficult to get. You've really got to do some like Google archaeologies, because a lot of the best patches Well, it depends. There's kind of two camps. You might want to just patch it so it's the squads and the kits from the year the game came out, which I like to do. I'm not bothered about putting like this season into Pro Evo 3 or 4. I like to have those players and those kits that are around then, because that's what I would have wanted at the time when that was the current game. But a lot of those patches, they're now, the links are now gone. The ISOs aren't available, but there are. I stumbled across a Brazilian site.
You stumbled across a Brazilian.
What, as in the waxing thing?
Yes,
is that what you heard then?
Yeah.
Carry on. Not quite. Thanks for the segue there, Stu.
No problem.
You must have that on the mind or something. You're going to get that done soon or something, or?
Well, might do.
Please, do. Missus. So there's a guy. He's like archiving all the different patches that have come out for the PS2 version. There's literally like a couple of hundred for every single version of Pro Evo, and it really started with Winning 11-6 Final Evolution. So you could probably find a patched PS2 version of the game. You could download the ISO, burn it, and it'll have all the kits in. I'm not sure if anybody's made one that's got this season, but I've been playing one on my PS3 that plays PS2 games. I managed to get an ISO of Winning 11-6 with all the kits added in and the club teams updated with the right names and numbers. And the kits could be a bit are pretty good, but some of them are a little bit wonky, probably because of the limitations of what they can do with modding the kits. Because they might have very specific like things where the badge has to be on the left side and you can't change that. It's in the code of the game. So they've had to kind of work around that, which is annoying because some clubs or countries at that time might have had the badge in the middle of the shirt. So, that's not in it. They weren't really able to recreate that look because the game wouldn't allow it. So you're never going to get everything absolutely amazing, but some of them look really awesome. And even in like something like Pro Evo 3, 4, and 5, which is when the PC version kicked in, and I tend to play the PC versions more, the kits look amazing and nearly as good as like what you'd see in a modern day Pro Evo. And there is an annoying thing with it though, which if you decide to dive into it yourself, a lot of these mods, well, for one, you've got to try and find a version that's got the menus still in English. A lot of them are, say, Brazilian and Italian, so they've changed the menus. But they also like to mess with like the actual design of the menus and the music. I find that really annoying. They put like super weird looking like title screens with probably like some Brazilian relevant thing that will completely not, be anything to me or you.
Exactly.
Change the music to like some random Brazilian pop music of that year that sounds horrible, and also they might actually put a Brazilian commentator in the commentary. So
that's
dig out. Good. Yeah, I mean, I've managed to find a few where the commentary is still. If it's Winning 11, I don't mind having the original Japanese commentary. I think it's kind of entertaining to listen to anyway. But
so when it comes to things like sort of Sensible Soccer, Kickoff, there's still sort of small communities that meet up to play these. I mean, with the sort of the PlayStation 2, Pro Evo 6 you mentioned is sort of the iconic one. Do people still sort of meet up for tournaments? Obviously, I'd love to see them in the UK, but I imagine places like Brazil and across South America, Africa, or
I can't speak for every single like classic football game, but the ones that I have an interest in, which is Pro Evo we've already talked about, but Sensible Soccer, that absolutely does have like tournaments, mostly in Eastern Europe.
Really?
There's a big community in like Poland and Hungary for Sensible Soccer.
So I remember I've got a friend at work, and he always goes on to me. Oh, yeah, I'm really good at FIFA. So I mentioned that I got Pro Evo on Game Pass. Oh, I'm playing Pro Evo. Says, oh yeah, and he's from Egypt. So he goes, oh, whenever I go back to see my family in Egypt, it's Pro Evo. Everyone plays Pro Evo. That's what they all play. So I can imagine everyone sitting around a Xbox 360 or a PS3 playing Pro Evo. And so I think it's more.
I guess it depends on whether the licensing issues affect the. I mean, obviously in the UK, it will take a hit on the sales because the Premier League isn't in it. And I know we just talked about how you can mod the PS4 version, fairly easily. It's not like one and done, but you've got to know where to look. You've got to go on a specific site, download the various kit files and update files onto a USB stick. Stick that USB stick in your PS4. Know where you've got to move those files into. I think actually in the game you have to import them in the game, and but it's not quite hit the X button, it imports it, done. It's like you've got to kind of do everything in kind of chunks. I don't know if it's better now with 2020. I haven't tried. But there's still an element of you've got to do stuff. I mean, there's people on eBay that sell USB sticks that have all the files on, so you can just buy it for a tenner or something. Someone's done all this stuff. They bought a cheap USB stick for nothing, downloaded all these files that are often just given away for free on like Pro Evolution Soccer fan sites or modding sites, and have just put them on a stick and sold them with instructions. It just I think illegal.
If it's makes it easier to do.
They're not breaking the law. Some people would probably it makes you laugh a little bit, but hey, if there's money to be had in it, fine. And there's people that just genuinely don't want to do all the donkey work. They just want to stick with everything on. More power to them. There is but there's obviously a lot of people that aren't interested now. I just want to buy FIFA. I just it's got my teams in it. And obviously for someone like me who supports Charlton, Charlton have only ever been in Pro Evo, and very rarely when they're in the Premier League, and when they were South London Reds. And obviously you can mod if you've got a mod or a patch. You can obviously get the real Charlton, or when we've been in the second division. But someone like maybe another Charlton fan think, well, I'm not going to get Pro Evo because they're not in it. I want to get. It's funny, like we've joked about this before. I very rarely play as team that I support in football games. I just don't find it I don't find it that interesting. It's probably because I watch them all the time and I spend all my life thinking about them and dealing with being a Charlton fan. I don't really want to play as them in a football game in my spare time.
Well, saying that, when I brought FIFA 18 on the Switch, I did a whole season as Charlton, and we've always sort of talked that. Actually, I'm a Charlton fan. I've gone to the games plenty of times with yourself, and I always look for their results. I always want them to do well. And if they lose, I'm a bit annoyed, and I'm happier if they win. But it was I actually I want to play as Charlton, but the problem is when you play these games as Charlton, it almost feels like you look at all the players' stats and they're so slow, they're so this, they're so that, and when you play it online, everyone's Real Madrid, Liverpool, Barcelona, and if you actually go, I want to play as Charlton against these people, it's almost like you've got a little bit of a hand sort of tied behind your back, maybe.
Yeah, much like when the real Charlton team just play any football game.
Yeah, which is obviously if Charlton were to play, Liverpool, I'm sure Liverpool would win, and rightly so. But
these days we struggle against like Yeovil, like in real life. Yeah. But I think for me, I tend to I don't really play football games online. I don't really like playing online in general. I just like single player. But and FIFA's especially is quite good with you do like the career mode, but you play as like you could do the manager mode, which is basically like Championship Manager, but you get to play the football as well as do the tactics. So people like me and you who are into the wider world of football and not just the team we support and maybe the top 5 of the Premier League. We're into like all kinds of non-league and like lower division stuff, and we've been to like Dulwich Hamlet, and like you've been to Dover and all that sort of stuff. It was quite fun.
It was quite funny on my Facebook the other day, maybe 2 days ago. It said, 1 year ago, you were I went on a Saturday to watch Dulwich Hamlet away at Tunbridge, and in the first or second game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And it was just
funny,
like
actually.
unbelievable. It's like what the first and obviously that was a year ago, but then the season's not going to start for another 2 or 3 months. It feels like in the lower leagues, and
Yeah, I'm hoping to go and watch Welling as well. Who are the local team, like after Charlton, who are the
yeah.
second most local team to me. I've never been to see them, so I've been meaning to do it for years. But
Well, give me a shout. I'll come along with you. But
yeah, but yeah, it's sort of in terms of like playing FIFA. It's I like, oh yeah, like I'll look at the teams that I want to pick to start a season with, and I'll be like, oh, who could I be? And I'll be like, oh yeah, let's try playing as Leighton Orient. You know, they haven't been promoted for a few years. Wouldn't it be great if I did that? Let's see if I can get them into the Premier League. You know,
yeah,
so I find that really a really like engaging way of playing the game. But yeah, I mean, to get to like the original point before I trailed off. You won't be able to do that in Pro Evo. So I think in this country, it's always a bit hamstrung. Whereas in
yeah,
Egypt, or maybe a country where their league has never really been, it might not even be in FIFA. I guess to them, it's just a kind of more of an open, fairer kind of choice between Pro Evo and FIFA. They can just get
yeah.
whatever game plays the best football, and it probably is Pro Evo at the moment. You know, and I think it's had several like.
I mean, I enjoyed it this year. I thought it was really good, and what stood out, we talked about this actually before the podcast started. Is this year I've noticed that they're coming out with basically an update pack for sort of £25 or £20, something like that. So sort of half the price of what the game normally costs. And they go, okay, yeah, we've updated the kits, we've improved the gameplay a bit. Moved all the players around to where they've gone to. What do you think of that? Is that a good way of going forward?
I think that's how it should be, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
I think, yeah. So instead of buying an update to the previous year's game with minor gameplay bits and then the squad, you might as well just keep the same game for 2 or 3 years, and you just pay
yeah,
for a minimal 20 quid. I think it's 25 quid, isn't it?
yeah,
25 quid.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's got the old game, but with new kits and new players. I think that's a better way to do it. And then you just do that each year. And then maybe after 3 or 4 years, you'll get a big like overhauled game with new gameplay and new innovations and things like that. And maybe that'll be a £50-60 game. And that'll then get a 20 quid update. That's really how it should happen. And I don't think. I mean, I'm not. I'm quite happy to play the same football game for 2 or 3 years. There's plenty of other games that you'll play for 2 or 3 years. I mean, Grand Theft Auto or something, you're going to get a sequel to that for 7-8 years now.
yeah.
So you can absolutely play the original to death. And like I said, with the career modes in football games, you could spend hundreds of hours in them, spanning over 2 or 3 years. People always complain that with Ultimate Team I have to start again each year, having spent hundreds of hours building it up. Well, I guess if you prolong the amount of time it was before they did a big reset, and you just bought a DLC for the next season's update, maybe that would mitigate that, and people would probably be happier with that, I guess.
Well, I think that'd be better for taking, because I always sort of feel like, I mean, I never play Ultimate Team or things like that. But imagine for a whole year you've invested, and some people invest money into Ultimate Team, which to me is a bit crazy.
Yeah,
and then let's say they bought the game and then they've spent £200 on Ultimate Team, which I don't think is a huge amount compared to what some people pay
probably
on it.
Not.
So they spent £200 on Ultimate Team. Okay, then it comes to September the following year, and okay, they've got to buy the next FIFA. So everything they bought, I mean, is it all lost? Have they got to start? Yeah. Have they got to start again with a brand new Ultimate Team? I don't know, but
I think that's what they have to do. That is literally it. They have to start again with a new team. Start from,
and to me, like, imagine if you got the update, and then okay, you can take your Ultimate Team that you've been working on all year, and you can carry on with that one. And I think that'd be much better. And I would actually like to take it a little bit further. And I think with the update for Pro Evo this year, they have actually updated the gameplay a little bit, and I don't even want to see them do a what's it called, a sort of a big new edition every 3 or 4 years. I'd like to see them just update it, and then just constantly updating the gameplay, just constantly putting updates down, like games like you get a Call of Duty like Warfare, the big open plan one, and games like Fortnite. Have FIFA or Pro Evo ever thought about going down that route of going, okay, yeah, well, we're just going to do it as a free to play game, and where it's just you got the game on your system, and if you want to just do games against the computer or your friend, okay, it doesn't cost anything. But then if you want to, run around the pitch and all of your players have bright pink hair and are dressed up as clowns, okay, buy the clown pack that's $4.99 and do that, and you can sort of decorate your stadium, and then that's when potentially they'll make their money. And I'm not telling them what to do, but
yeah, I mean, also the fact that you get a new version of the game like every single year, and then where they've just changed a few dials, turn this one up here, turn this one down here, and the next year they do the opposite. Probably the reason why people like me and you go back to, I really want to start playing Winning 11 6 again, because that was like the perfect gameplay for me, and they killed it with Winning 11 7 or Pro Evo 3. I think the reason why we go back to these games is probably why people mod the old games, because for them that was the perfect football game, and then it got killed a year later when they had to tweak all the play.
Every year I watch the review for the latest FIFA, and never have they ever said, they've changed everything, they've made it 10 times better. What they say is, they've made some tweaks to this, they've made some tweaks to that, a few things are not as good, and it always sounds sort of like quite negative, like, actually, I don't want to buy it now.
Yeah, we talked about this before we jumped on the show, like playing Pro Evo 2020. I really like attacking down the wings and throwing in crosses.
Yeah.
So I score, on previous Pro Evos, that meant I scored a lot of goals from headers. Things basically happening from a cross being whipped into the box. But Pro Evo 2020, they've basically they've dialed something down on the effectiveness of crosses and headers. So it made it really annoying for me to play, because the way that I enjoy playing the game of football in Pro Evo has been nerfed. So it means that I don't really like playing that game now. I'd rather go back and play 2018, where that was really enjoyable to play like that. So it's just changing for the sake of changing it, so they could push out, so they can justify charging £50 again. Really.
Yeah. So I think they should have, maybe sort of going into the future, a different way of sort of distributing the game, and potentially they'll do better out of that. I don't know, but
here's hoping. But capitalism, got to keep that rolling.
Yeah, well, at the moment you have
capitalism. You get that's what I say.
I'm pro-capitalism.
Pro-evolution capitalism.
I'm pro-evolution capitalism.
I guess that's what Pro Evo is, really, isn't it?
Capitalism.
They're not making the game to make us happy, are they, really?
No.
But on that note, where can you find us, Stu?
Right, we are on consoleshock.net, and I actually looked at the comments that we get on consoleshock.net, and there is in Hyderabad, honestly, I've got 1,200 unlooked at comments on consoleshock.net.
1,900 of spam.
But 99% of them are spam, and it's just absolute garbage.
Okay, cool.
So anyway, go to consoleshock.net.
Leave a real comment, please.
Leave a real comment. We won't notice it because there's so much spam that's written on there. But it's basically a place to put the podcasts on, so then they go to the iTunes and all of that. So you find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. I think we're on quite a few different clients now. People have sort of picked us up on there. And then we've also got a YouTube channel, Console Shock Official, not unofficial. And then on Facebook as well, and on Twitter. If you just search Console Shock, you'll find us.
Thanks, Stu. Well, hopefully we gave everybody a little insight into, a Konami series that doesn't really get the recognition it deserves compared to Castlevanias and Contras. We love it. But thank you for listening, everybody. Hopefully it'll make you want to dig out your old copies of Pro Evo, maybe from years gone by, and mod in the latest kits. You going to do that, Stu?
I think I will do, yeah.
Winning 11-6?
I think so. I've got it here somewhere, and I did play it a little while ago, actually. But I'm always paranoid that I've got to take out the memory cards, otherwise it will format my save games. This is a Japanese game.
You've got a fat PS3, haven't you, that plays PS2 games?
No, I'll play it on the GameCube.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, GameCube, yeah.
Dig out a patched version of it then, yeah.
I think I'll have to.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening, and we shall see you in the next one. Cheers.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.